We'll go ahead and start with roll call. Joan?
Chris Mortensen, Charles Long,
Here.
Michael Schaaf,
Here.
Priscilla Benali,
Quesada.
Kevin Mitchell.
Here.
Thank you, Joan. We do have a quorum, so I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. Can everybody join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zeta symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you, everyone, for being here, attending our meeting. Let's go to item number 2, approval of agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Michael Schaaf and second by Priscilla Benali to approve the agenda. Roll call. Joan?
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Benali,
Oh,
Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. Okay, we have approved our agenda for today's meeting. Let's go down to recognition. Mike?
Vice President Long, members of the board, this is an exciting day. We have 2 groups of students here today that we want to recognize. First, we have the Gallup High School girls basketball state champions that are here in the front. We're going to start by recognizing them. I first want to let you know that President Mortensen sends his congratulations. He's at an impromptu vacation for an anniversary in Mexico. So from Mexico, you have a fan down there excited for what you guys accomplished. It was an incredible run that you had as a team. I had opportunity to watch a few games in the pit. I think the NMA loves you, because they get a lot more money in ticket sales because of the Gallup High School girls basketball team. But it was an incredible run. Your competition was a little steeper this time than I've seen in past championships. Some of those teams came a little bit more prepared, but they were no match for you. Very talented, hardworking, strong defense, strong offense. I could go on and on. But it was you're an incredible team to watch and to see you compete. We want the board to be able to come down in the front. We want to recognize all of the girls and coaches, and then we'll get started.
Testing, there we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, members of the board, Mr. Hyatt, other administration, all our guests today. My name is Lawrence Senna. I'm the Director of Athletics for Gallup McKinley County Schools, and it's really a great honor for me to have the opportunity to be up here to recognize our youth as they did an outstanding job this season. And again, to reiterate some of the things that Mr. Hyatt said, it was an exciting year. I did have the pleasure of being the principal of the building last year and got to see these young ladies play and compete. And then again this year I was able to go catch a few games. It was really exciting to see. And it was just one of those seasons that you guys were just really pushing on, running an undefeated season, and then district, and had a little hiccup, right? And then came up again and had another little hiccup. And people were starting to worry a little bit, but you know, I sat one game, we were watching a boys game, and I was sitting there next to Coach McBroom, and I was like, whew, what do you got in store? And he goes, well, you know, We got this. Not too worried. We're going to come up with another little press breaker, little something. We got this. No worries. And sure enough, no worries. Come back with the district championship and the ultimate state championship. And so an amazing honor to be down there on the floor of the pit and be able to watch and experience that with all of you and the amazing attendance that we had. So once again, congratulations. So at this time, we'd like to honor you by the school board. We'd like to recognize you for your outstanding athletic achievement. The Gallup McKinley County School Board congratulates you. And we're going to go ahead and start this backwards. We're going to start with coaches first. Something that usually doesn't happen, so we're going to call the coaches up first. We had assistant coach and film manager Robin Langer. Assistant coach George Sanchez. Congratulations. Assistant coach Odessa Yazi. Assistant coach Mike Butkovich. And head coach Todd McBroom.
Great job.
All right, and now for the players. Number 1, Marinez. Number 2, Natalie Dixon. Number 3, Paisley Coho. Congratulations. Number 4, Alicia Slinky. Number 5, Linnell Nota. Number 10, Makaya Vicente. Number 12, Peyton Johnson. Number 20, Katie Pablo. Number 23, Kamara Cooper Randall. Congratulations. Number 22, Leilana Williams. Number 25, Shannon Etsy. Number 33, Chloe Bahi. Number 32, Summer Joe. Number 40, Kaden Sosi. And number 34, Riley Whitehair. All right, and the most important people, the behind the scenes, make sure everything gets done, our managers, Harmony Gorman and Odessa Harvey.
We have one more award, members of the board. And this is just a side award here that we wanted to create for this year and hopefully create a bigger one next year. It's kind of a small little plaque, but next year, when you guys come back with the 4th state championship in the last 6 years, at that point, we'll get a little bigger one. I want to read something really quickly. Todd McBroom has established himself as the most successful Gallup McKinley County Schools basketball coach and one of New Mexico's most successful high school basketball coaches during his tenure at Gallup High School. This impressive 8-season record of 185 wins and 51 losses demonstrates his exceptional leadership and coaching abilities. Under McBroom's leadership, The Gallup High School girls basketball program has achieved remarkable success, including 3 state championships in the past 5 years, 2021, 23, and 25. His consistency in reaching the state tournament showcases his ability to maintain high-level performance year after year. His coaching excellence has been recognized with 3 District 1 4A Coach of the Year awards. In 2021, he received the prestigious New Mexico High School Coaches Association Coach of the Year Award, acknowledging his impact on high school basketball across the state. Perhaps the most significant, Coach McBroom's influence extends beyond wins and championships. During his 8 seasons, he has helped 13 players advance to the collegiate basketball level, demonstrating his commitment to developing student athletes both on and off the court. We did a little bit of research, and there's not a lot of coaches have won more than one or even won one state championship. But to win 3 state championships in 8 years of coaching and 3 and 5 year period of time has never been done in Gallup McKinley County schools. And so we wanted to recognize Coach McBroom with another little extra award and appreciation for him and his commitment to his student athletes. And it simply reads, most successful coach to 3 state basketball championships. Gallup McKinley County Schools. Yeah, thinking about your season.
So I mean, it's the kids that win the championships. I mean, toughness and their availability to show up and work and get better in the weight room and on the court. It's not that I'm the brightest mind in basketball, because I'm not, but it's because we have kids like this that show up and work extremely hard that things like this happen with championships and whatnot. So I'm very proud of the kids and what we've been able to do in my time here at Gallup. So thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, everybody got a photo? We're good? All righty, thank you. There is some cupcakes. I think they said the orange and black cupcakes to celebrate your championship. So you're welcome to have.
Teamwork.
We'll do it again next year.
Oh, I know you will. Hey. Good. to watch you out there this year. Do you have something to say for this too? I was going to invite him up. Just have him talk about it.
That sounds good to me.
Is that all right with you? Unless you had something really interesting. Members of the board, we're excited for our next presentation. We have some incredible students as part of our Young Marines program that completed again some of you maybe again, it's a couple years we've been doing this, but recognizing those who have completed the Bataan Memorial Death March, and we're excited to have them here. It's a grueling hike, but before we they're gonna do a little differently this time. Before we recognize all of our students, we want to invite up Jose Echeverria. I hope I said that right. I'm part Hispanic, but they didn't teach when I was a kid. They didn't teach me Spanish very well, so. We just wanted to see if you would come up and just talk a little bit about the experience the students went through, and then we'll recognize everybody.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. It was an honor taking these students out to the Bataan Memorial Death March in White Sands Missile Range. A lot of their completion was on their own behalf. They really pushed themselves in order to accomplish
I don't think we ever walked more than 13 miles, so that's a little longer than, probably a little more difficult on the trails you guys were hiking too. That's awesome. Congratulations. We want to start by recognizing your sponsor today. So we want to thank you. Appreciate you and your efforts to prepare these young men and women for their future. So thank you. Come on up.
So once again, in recognition of your outstanding athletic achievement, the Gallup McKinley County School Board congratulates you for your completion of the 36th Annual Baton Memorial Death March, the Young Marines. And so we'd like to start off with Joshua Justly. Caitlin Yazi. Gabriel Mescal. Haven Talamante. Isaiah Tom.
You're prepared?
Darwin James.
Mentally challenged.
Shantae Archie. Nicholas Christian.
Congratulations. Great job.
Skylar Gray.
Congratulations. Great job.
Ryder Nelson.
Mr. Gray, good job. Thank you. Keep that sun out of your eyes. It's really bright in here. Congratulations.
Faith Lujan. Colby Livingston.
Great job. Congratulations. Good job, Colby.
Cyril Morgan. Tristan Davis.
Mr. Morgan. Congratulations. Good job, Tristan.
Deacon Draven. And Adriana Yazi.
Congratulations. Great job.
Good job.
Mr. Ozzy, good job. So you all come up here in the front? All right, come on over, come on over. All people in the back? Oh, is that who that was? We have cupcakes in the back. The orange and black ones, were for the girls' basketball team, but they started to take the red ones and the the white ones, which were for our Baton Death March. Awesome.
I really do appreciate it, and it's great to finally meet you.
Well, I'm not the anonymous person. She donates every year, so it just comes through me. She sends it to me and I bring it down. But her father was in the
Orange lips.
and she wants to recognize, you know, there was like 125 from this area that were in the Baton Death March, and she just wants us to Gallup be represented down there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, and then, next year we'll have uniforms. Everybody will be, I plan on making it better next year.
So, how was it? Was it pretty grueling? She said they changed the course from,
Yeah, they changed,
How-
2 labs?
she said you had to go through the sand pits or
How
something.
long do they take? How long does it take?
Our fastest team finished in a little less than 8 hours. And then, our slowest finished it in 13 and 15 minutes.
And they had to just keep going until 8 hours for 8 hours?
Yeah, so it's just 26 miles, 26.2 miles.
That's her.
Oh, very nice, yeah. Yeah, so it's just
She,
nonstop. There's no.
she ran it with the 35-pound pack on her back.
Yeah, we had one student, I offered them, you know, if they wanted to do it. He did about 8, and then he said, no, I gotta drop the weights. But I told him, I said, hey, you know, you did 8 miles, 8 miles on 35 pounds. Still an accomplishment on its own.
She did the whole 26, ran it. I think it took her just over 4 hours or something like that.
Yeah, next year
Oh, nice like your hat, Shiaj. Good job. Good job.
Good job.
I'm gonna try and have us finish it within 6 hours.
Really?
Are you,
Good to
what
see you
grade are you?
again.
Oh,
I'm glad
I have a couple of
you
questions.
competed again.
I'll wait till I get.
oh, sure, that's it.
What's that?
Your last run at it. Did you do it last year or no?
Yes, I did it at the beginning of ROTC.
What?
Vice President, I have a couple of questions, please.
Well,
Go ahead.
yes.
This goes out to the March, sir. Thank you. And Mr. Hyatt, I just wanted to ask, sir, if there's any way we can continue to support them. They've come here a couple of years now for their presentation, and looking at the pictures, is there anything we can do to provide a uniform, maybe a backpack, something to help them recognize that they are from GMCS and that they are working together as a team, as a family, you know, something that all matches, that we can continue to support them as a board also.
Vice President Long, Member Benali, we did just receive our Young Marines uniforms this week. We've been working with the group. A pallet of uniforms were delivered, and I'm not sure if you've received them yet, but they will be delivered to the school site. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you.
And just to continue on, so we did have Young Marines shirts, gray shirts with the Young Marines logo and the Mayamira logo on the back of it. So we did have uniformity out there, and all the support was amazing. You know, we did get enough funding in order to get out there and to provide tents and sleeping bags for the students because we did camp out there. So everything was provided, and I really appreciate all of the hard work and dedication from all of you.
And I know where we did the transition from ROTC to young Marines, and how many other schools are kind of interested in it again, to them to continue this?
Sure. Member Benali, if any school is interested, we are starting with after-school programs. And as soon as we get a firm sponsor at those school sites, we will integrate them just as we have at the two high schools so far. But those programs are available. So if anyone is interested, they can reach out to Reina Sanchez.
Reina?
Reina, R-A-N-A, Sanchez. We will start with an after-school program to make sure that we can get it up and running, and then once we have it up and running, it will become a solid part of the day, just like we have at the other schools.
And what's the other school? Or is this the only school right now?
So Gallup High is the
Gallup
other
High?
school. Those were the two original ROTC schools, but we are looking for additional retired military individuals, and although we are the Young Marines, we do accept retired individuals from any military branch.
That was my next question.
Yes,
Thank
you do not have to be a Marine.
Okay. And during this march, how many overall students were participated? Like statewide? Is it nationwide or statewide?
Yeah, so there was individuals from all over the country,
Oh, okay.
individuals from California. We even had a Young Marine unit out of Kansas show up. So yeah, so it was, it's open to anybody and everybody, just to honor those that took part in the baton.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and congratulations to our students. My last comment, Mr. Long, is I just want to thank our school district for continuing to support our youth and also our athletes. I seen Mr. Senna there at the games, and our superintendent, thank you for being there, participating in person, and Mr. Mitchell and I lost our voice yelling a few days there, but it was so exciting, and we're so proud to be there to also see their accomplishments. And we thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Marines,
hoorah!
I want to thank the Young Marines for competing, representing Gallup, and I want to thank the anonymous donor that pays for all their registrations. So this can continue.
Wow.
Yeah, from Crown Point, the youth program out there, they usually send students to San Diego to find out what it's like to go through Marine Corps boot camp. They call the program Devil Dogs. That's the Marines, I guess almost like an emblem. Devil Dogs, and even retired Marines, we call ourselves Devil Dogs. So, but that was good, and I was telling them that 26 miles is a great distance. I'm glad they made it. I was telling them that in the Marine Corps, we do what's called a crucible. That's a 40-mile march with a backpack that weighs 80 pounds on your back. And I think some of the recruits have a hard time making it. But it's always good, when you finish it. It's always good, so I'm proud of our young Marines. Keep it up. I think that's one place where you learn discipline and how to take orders, how to work as a team. So appreciate that. Yeah. With that, we go ahead.
No.
We go to item 3, approval of meeting minutes of March 10, 2025.
Motion to approve the minutes of March 10th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Michael Shaw, second by Kevin Mitchell to approve the meeting minutes of March 10th. Roll call, Joan.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali,
Oh,
Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. Thank you, board members. Let's go down to consent agenda items, board members.
Mr. Long, I would like to motion to approve the consent item agenda, sir.
Gushi, thank you, Priscilla. Is there a second?
Second.
Kevin?
Oh, yeah.
Second.
Motion by Priscilla, second by Kevin. To approve the consent agenda items. Roll call, Joan?
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali,
Oh,
Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. Yeah, board members. Let's go down to study circle. Mike, we don't have any public comment, right?
No public comment.
Gushi. Superintendent's report.
Vice
Mike?
President Long, members of the board, we have had our lobbyists come to share a kind of a recap of the legislative session and those bills that were passed that affect education. And so we'd like to invite J.D. Bullington up to give his report.
Okay. I've been getting his texts, his emails, so thank you.
You can turn that pulpit a little bit too. I don't think we had it here. There, that'll work. They still got you on camera, I promise. Push the button until it turns green.
It's green.
There you go.
Okay, great. Well, I think it's exciting about the girls' basketball team. You know, I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
That made big news on the sports page up in Santa Fe. So, congratulations! And what a voice that guy has. When he retires, he can be a boxing ringside announcer.
Yep.
That's our athletic director, Mr. Senna. I thought it was Sammy C. for a second, but I guess it was Lawrence Senna.
Well, it's great to be back out here in Gallup with all of you. As you know, I'm J.D. Bullington. I'm the registered lobbyist for the Gallup McKinley County Public Schools District. And we have just completed a 60-day legislative session that ended on March 22nd. In odd-numbered years, like 2025, the legislature meets for 60 straight calendar days, and any topic is germane, not just the budget. In odd-numbered years, in even-numbered years, like next year in 2026, the session will only be 30 days long, and the only topic they can deal with is anything that has a fiscal impact or financial matter relating to the budget in the state. The governor always has the ability to expand the agenda, and whoever he or she is, they always do that. That is why we always see crime bills, which don't have an effect on the budget. Every year, crime bills are made germane because we have pockets in this state where crime is an increasing problem. Crime was a big issue this session. You know, there was a special session last July. The governor called them all in. She had 4 bills she wanted them to deal with. They said no, and they recessed after a couple of hours and went home. Really upset the governor, so they made a little more progress this year on crime bills. However, the governor is disappointed that nothing was done in the area of juvenile crime. This is a big issue, particularly in Albuquerque, where the district attorney is pushing it. And I start off my comments with this because there is talk of a special session again, and there will likely be one in the fall. And we know juvenile justice, juvenile crime is going to be on the call of the governor. She really wants the legislature to deal with juvenile crime. And then also, when we get to September, October, we're going to have a better picture of what the federal cuts may mean for New Mexico. You know, there is talk of dismantling the federal public education department, which is a flow-through for money. The mayor of Albuquerque is already holding press conference and saying the city of Albuquerque could lose up to $200 million in federal funding. So there are ramifications for the federal cuts all throughout the state and also for every school district. So when we get to the fall, when we expect that special session to convene, we're going to have a better idea of what the ramifications are of the federal cuts, because they sort of just keep coming on.
I just want to make a clarifying comment is, the federal dollars aren't necessarily being targeted to be cut. It's just the department to be cut. I believe a lot of the dollars, maybe some of them would be, but
Yeah.
highly doubt that $200 million, that Albuquerque would stop getting those dollars. I think they plan to have those dollars flow through other agencies.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. What we are seeing right now is a lot of reduction in federal employees, mostly. Other than that, it was a pretty, there were some new topics this session that we haven't seen before. There were a lot of privacy bills, and there was a lot of artificial intelligence bills dealing with the policy of artificial intelligence. None of that really spilled too much in the arena of education, but that is going to continue to be a hot topic, and I expect eventually, as artificial intelligence permeates through everything, some of these bills are going to start showing up on our agenda because they're going to have ramifications for school districts and schools. So I know that Giovanna has passed out this sheet that shows the legislation that's passed both houses and senates. Her sheet is better than mine, so I'm going to go down this sheet that you have and fill in a few blanks and highlight. I'm not going to hit every bill on here, but I'm going to highlight the ones that we lobbied and are important to the district. Well, right at the top of the list is House Bill 2. That is the omnibus budget bill that the legislature, that's their primary purpose every session, is to pass an operational budget bill for the state of New Mexico. And of course, in that budget bill includes a lot of funding for education, which is close to half of the state portion of the budget. I believe she also passed out a public school support sheet. Okay, so this money is going to be in House Bill 2. That's where public school support winds up. And I think we're all pleased with what the legislature did this year. On the far right side, it says SFC recommendation. That's the number that matters, because public school support goes through a lengthy process. They start off talking about it in the summer, and they have interim committees, and the Legislative Finance Committee makes recommendations. The Legislative Education Study Committee makes recommendations on what public school support. And then you get into the session, the second to last column is HAFC. That's the House Appropriations and Finance Committee recommendation. And the HAFC is where House Bill 2 starts. That's the House Budget Committee. They always kick out House Bill 2. Once it passes the House, it goes over to the Senate, and House Bill 2 is dealt with by the SFC, the Senate Finance Committee, that makes its amendments and adjustments. And you'll see pretty much for the most part, the SFC, if you go down like 3/4 of the way down, line 51, subtotal public school support, you can see that the SFC number at $4,672,000,000 is higher than what the House recommended. It's higher than what it's slightly under what the LESC recommended, but it is higher than the LFC. So those are pretty good numbers. I think we're all pretty pleased with what the public school support numbers are. There are a few things that stick out. There are a lot of special appropriations in what we call below the line this year. I think Giovanna was telling me there were over $200 million in appropriations below the line on public school support. And there was even one special appropriation to one single school district that sort of stands out in our minds as perhaps being contrary to the directives and guidance that the courts have given us with respect to the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. So these
let's spell it out. It's Rio Rancho,
Okay.
the golden child of New Mexico, who allegedly, unless the governor vetoes it, is going to get several million more dollars than every other student. And I'm pretty sure our students are just as important as theirs. that they have had more dollars go to them on average, especially in transportation last year, than any other district saw. This biggest part of the increase. So not a huge fan of Rio Rancho and some of their tactics, the legislators getting those dollars into the thing, and why legislators are letting those dollars go through in House Bill 2 and it's not cut ahead of time. And it's unfortunate because Rio Rancho was a plaintiff in the Ozzie Martinez lawsuit, yet it's taking advantage of students across New Mexico.
Well, and Superintendent, thanks for pointing out that point. Siobhan and I actually had a phone call conversation about that. The legislature is a political arena, so it's probably not going to surprise you to hear that there are politics involved in the political arena, and there are certainly politics at play behind that appropriation, that special appropriation only to the Rio Rancho Public School District.
But I will say congratulations to them. I hope our legislators are able to pull off extra millions of dollars for us, but I haven't seen it yet in the form of HB2. So.
And Superintendent Hyatt, thank you for bringing up the subject.
Priscilla, you have
Yeah,
the
thank you,
floor.
Mr. Long. So what is the favoritism there? I mean, why is Rio Rancho getting several million more dollars than any other school district? I mean, who's leading it? Why are they asking for it? What are they going to do with it? You know, I mean, like, why are they so special?
Director Benally, this is my third legislative session as the lobbyist for the Gallup McKinley County School District. This has been a pattern in previous sessions. We've had issues with the notice that the Rio Rancho School District is singled out for special appropriations on transportation funding, for example. We've seen it show up in transportation. Now we've seen it show up on class size adjustments and other factors. This is really sort of driven at the Legislative Finance Committee. These special appropriations show up toward the end of the legislative process when the bill gets over into the Senate Finance Committee. And these special appropriations to Rio Rancho Public School District are supported by the LFC staff.
So I want to kind of echo what Mike's saying. If legislators in Rio Rancho can do this for their constituents and their school district, and we keep getting everybody keeps telling us when we go to Santa Fe, you have powerful legislators in your area that sit on these high-level finance committee. Why? If other legislators are doing that, getting extra millions of dollars for their students, where's our legislators? We need to put that stipulation. I mean, they know, our legislators here all know the distance our children travel on these dirt roads, gravel roads, bridges that we're still begging for money for. And why aren't we pushing for that several millions of dollars for our transportation? Our buses are breaking down quicker than Rio Rancho. I mean, my kids live in Rio Rancho. It's all paved. I mean, if you get off a dirt road, it's like from here to the stoplight, dirt road.
Well, the superintendent of Rio Rancho claims that those dirt roads are just terrible and they need extra money, and that's how they lobbied for it last year. And so I have open invitation for anybody in Rio Rancho that wants to come out to Pueblo Pintado or Tehachapi or
Everywhere.
just east of Gallup.
Red
I think
Rock.
would be a good, even west of
Rock.
So.
Pinedale.
Pinedale, yeah.
Dr. Benally, let me provide a little bit of background that'll kind of help understand how the process is and how this is happening. I don't think it is as much of an issue as the Gallup area legislators versus the legislators who represent Rio Rancho. And the reason I say that, although there is some of that factor at play, which I'll elaborate on in a minute, but these special appropriations are showing up very, very late. They're not showing up early in House Bill 2. They're showing up late once the bill gets to the Senate Finance Committee. These amendments are done behind closed doors. We don't have any opportunity to see what they're doing until the Senate Finance Committee rolls out its version of House Bill 2. Now, when they do that, we don't have an opportunity to go through it line by line and pick out things because they pass it out of committee with their new version and with a special appropriation like this, and it goes straight to the Senate floor. There's no public comment period on that. It goes straight to the Senate floor, and because it's an omnibus budget bill that's 300 pages long, nobody really amends it on the Senate floor because they sort of have the deal worked out, and that's why you don't see House Bill 2 amended, a 300-page budget bill. It's hardly ever amended on the Senate floor. They just pass it, and then your chance to respond to it, when it goes to the governor, you can write a letter to the governor pointing out some of the discrepancies that are unfair. So it's really this one committee, the Senate Finance Committee, that's signing off on this. And that committee, of course, is chaired by Senator George Munoz, who is a Gallup area lawmaker. But I don't believe there are no other members of our delegation that are on the Senate Finance Committee, and it is also not stacked with Rio Rancho lawmakers. This is an LFC staff maneuver that working in conjunction with the Senate Finance Committee. That's my read. You want to?
And just really quickly, the appropriation is to, I think it's for after-school programs
And CT.
and also reduction in CTE. Dollars, like we don't need that, or everybody else doesn't need that in New Mexico, but also class size reduction, and I think after school, right? Those three, or at least CTE and class size reduction. So they're the only ones with oversized classes, I guess, in New Mexico.
Well, and Member Benali, if you will allow me, I will also tell you that this version of the bill is still kind of hidden on the New Mexico legislative website. So when you go in there to look at the bill, the current view of the bills that are posted on the main page is still the HAFC, which is the House Appropriations and Finance. To find the final version of the bill that was passed, you have to go down into the actions that have taken place to even find the current version of the bill. So even the transparency right now is still not there.
And then what we are asking for a veto from the governor, so just letting the board know that we've drafted something. We're just gonna have Mr. Mortensen sign it, and then just to ask for that language to be taken out so that one school district's not favored over the rest of the students in New Mexico.
And that day that the governor has to take final action on all the bills that are on her desk is April 11th at 12 noon. So she's got about 10 days left. I believe she just got the budget over the weekend. It was officially sent to her. There's always a little bit of a time delay because these bills have to be proof, they have to be what's called enrolled and gross, they have to be formatted, they have to be packaged properly so they can go to the governor, and that usually takes several days. So she just got this bill, and I know that letter is in the works. So April 11th is the final day for executive action, not just on the budget, but also for any other bill that's on her desk. And a very, very important thing to note is that the governor does have line item veto authority, however, only on legislation that contains money and numbers in it. She cannot line item veto anything out of a bill that does not have a dollar amount in it somewhere. This is why the legislature hardly ever sends up a piece of legislation to the governor with an appropriation attached to it, because that means if you stick money on that bill and send it to her, she can line item out any words she wants in any combination and dramatically change the subject of the bill by deleting certain words.
So,
But House Bill 2 is fair game, though.
Mr. Hyatt, is there anything besides, well, as you said, we already did a letter, but as our constituents or even students that could, call the governor, ask the governor, write the governor, email the governor, I don't know, something, even our chapters or our, saying, we don't agree with Rio Rancho being the only school district getting much more money than our students in Gallup. Is there anything we can put out there, social media? I mean, I don't, in the newspaper, I hope, you know, the Gallup Independent is listening so they can publish this, this part of in the newspaper that our students deserve the money too.
We can definitely do that. We'll put it out on social media. There's other avenues we can put so that people have an opportunity to voice their opinion on this to the governor.
Yeah.
I'll just add personally, you know, I saw the letter that's going to be sent to the governor. I think it's worded very well. I think it's pretty firm, pretty strong. I think it's a well-worded letter. Okay, so.
You helped write it, so thanks.
A little bit. House Bill 2, I think I'll leave that there. I think when I'm finished, Giovanna, if you want to come back, clean up, or if you want to talk about House Bill 2 before I move on anymore, if you think there's anything worth highlighting, before I move on to some of the other policy bills.
Sure. I would just like to say that what did pass is a 4% increase for all employees. They also increased the teacher salary minimums from the 50, 60, 70 to 55, 65, 75. That was all incorporated into House Bill 2. That main portion of the public school support really tells you the changes that they made to the funding formula. And we were happy to see that they actually did adopt the LESC recommendation on funding formula changes, which will facilitate additional funding in the secondary by the unit value changes there. I would also just like to say, and JD mentioned this, $200 million in below the line appropriations, which means we get to apply for and then do reimbursement of funds versus funds coming through the SEG is still something that's very concerning. The fact that we continue to have these ad hoc one-year programs is a start and stop problem. We need to be able to count on continuous funding to enact programs. Instability of that nature is very difficult. Education doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's always a continuation of building over time, and one-year programs are very difficult to lift. We will still go after any funding that will benefit our students, but this is kind of why you see these ad hoc start and stop things as the state chooses to fund or not fund. And $200 million is a huge investment in one-year programs.
That's one bill. You ready to go on to the next?
Here you go. I believe that's yours. Oh, yes. All right. Let me go down the list and hit some other bills. I'm gonna jump down to House Bill 8. This is a significant bill for the district because this makes it now, if the governor signs this, again, she has until April 11th to sign or veto all of these. Actually, this one is chaptered. She's already signed this. So it will now be a felony if a student makes a shooting threat. They make the threat that they're going to pull out a gun and engage in a shooting incident, or if they make a bomb threat. This is a sentencing enhancement bill, and it will now be a felony if those kinds of threats are made.
Wow.
Felony for a juvenile?
For anyone.
Yes, and that is signed by the governor. That is now law.
We probably need to do some reach out to our community just to let them know so that everybody's fair warned about the repercussions of those types of things. Every year, sometimes we aren't able to catch people, or the police aren't able to catch those who are making these threats, but I think it could go a long ways in helping deter people from thinking about those given the consequences now.
Priscilla.
Thank you, Mr. Long. So, JD, everywhere where it says chapter on any of these bills means it's signed off by the governor.
Correct, and
Okay.
there's not many of them, but a few.
Yes, thank you.
That is correct. I'm going to hit House Bill 54 real quick. This is something we were watching. Requires defibrillators in every high school. This has passed. It's on the governor's desk. The only concern here is it's a great idea, but it's expensive and there's no funding.
Zero.
There's zero funding associated with this, and I believe it's a mandate. You got to So this is going to fall on the district.
That's correct.
If it's signed. House Bill 63. Next to the budget, this is the next most important bill on the list. This is the public school funding formula changes in House Bill 63, as Giovanna said. This was the LESC recommendations. And if you go back to the public school support page, right there in the middle, state equalization guarantee, you can see what those numbers are. I think the SEG is going up by about $330 million above last year's funding level, which is significant. And this is where that secondary factor is that Giovanna referred to. SEG funding is where your at-risk funding components are, and increasing that funding in the secondary factor for 6th through 12th grade. That's where a lot of the, and English language learner funding is there. So the SEG funding is huge. You can see the size of the number. It's almost $5 billion. Well, it really is $5 billion. And it's gone up. So that was an extremely important bill that we have been supporting ever since the LASC made their recommendations in the fall. House Bill 65, very interesting bill that is dead, but just barely dead. This would have given school boards the authority to determine the number of instructional days in a school year. Take it away from Pet. This bill passed the House and Senate unanimously. It went to the governor, and she vetoed the bill. It came back to the House, and the House voted unanimously to override the governor's veto, which you don't see every day. Mm-hmm. However, when it went over to the Senate for their vote to override the veto, the Senate never took it up, and they did not vote to override the governor's veto. And in order to override a governor's veto, both the House and the Senate must vote to override it, and only the House did. So we are back to the status quo on instructional days in a school year. No change, although it came really close to giving you the authority to determine that. House Bill 156 at the bottom. Giovanna's already mentioned the increase in educational salaries. So I will move on to the next page. House Bill 195, school nurse salaries. This is another mandate it creates a 3-tiered licensure and salary system for school nurses, just like we have for teachers. It is a mandate, I believe, and it's an unfunded mandate. So this is back also on the district. You must now fall in line with this new salary range for your school nurses. House Bill 433, not a major bill, study career and technical education. This is a collaborative effort to study career technical education in conjunction with the Higher Education Department and with the Workforce Solutions Department. House Bill 450. Going to spend a little time on this one because, as has been mentioned by Member Benally, now we are going to talk about your local legislators on the capital outlay side. House Bill 450 is the omnibus capital outlay bill. And as I mentioned, this is my third legislative session with the Gallup McKinley County School District. There is another lobbyist for the district, that's Charlie Marcus, who's also a lobbyist for the district like myself. I tend to handle all of the policy stuff, and Charlie is very, very good at capital outlay, and he's been the one that's sort of been handling the mission of talking to the legislative delegation on capital outlay. And it's getting better. This year, it looks like $500,000 is going to be appropriated in a capital outlay. That's better. I will tell you that still, in my opinion, is way, way too low. That number should be significantly higher, in my opinion.
When it's released, if you could look at Rio Rancho's, I'd love to see what their legislators gave the school district in addition to HB2 millions of dollars. I think I'd like to see it maybe across the state, a comparison of similar sized districts, maybe a little larger, their local legislators' contributions to their school district.
And we are going to be able to see that number. I've passed out this that shows the 3 appropriations you got. Now, after April 11th, after the governor signs and partially vetoes the capital outlay bill, because they always strike projects out of the capital outlay bill,
Look at that.
after that date, they will publish a list, like Member Schaaf got. I believe, did you get this from Representative Lundstrom? Okay, so here is the sheet from Representative Lundstrom that shows everything that she funded on capital outlay this year. Again, this is unofficial because it hasn't been signed, but this is how she allocated her $2.5 million. This is how she did it. Now, this will be available for every single lawmaker in the legislature after April 11th, but you got a head start on this, and at least you got this one. But this is not available to the public yet. It's not published on the legislature's website, but it will be. And that will be very telling as to who's supporting the district and in what manner. I will tell you one of the challenges that we still have, and Superintendent Hyatt, you know I've said this many times, and this is something we need to continue to work on. There is still a perception out there among the lawmakers in this area that your district has enough money. There's that perception that we still
Probably
need.
why they voted for House Bill 2 for Rio Rancho, maybe. Some of them that think that way. I don't think they all think that way, but
Right.
it's interesting.
So is this, I'm sorry, Mr. Long,
Go ahead.
is this also have the same deadline as April 11?
Yes.
Okay.
House Bill 450, like House Bill 2, is a 300-page bill filled with just capital outlay projects by county, and it goes alphabetical. And so the governor, because this, again, has money in it, it has numbers in it, this is an appropriation bill like the budget, the governor can strike out numbers. She cannot change numbers. She cannot change anything. But she can strike out the entire appropriation, and she can strike out words in the appropriation to change where the money goes. So if there's like an appropriation for a city and a county, because it's a money bill, she can strike out city, she can strike out county, she can strike out any words in this bill and leave the money, or she can completely just strike out the money and strike out the whole thing, which is what they usually do. Governors usually don't tweak with the language in a capital outlay bill. They usually just, if they don't think the appropriation has merit, they just strike the whole thing. That's what happens.
So I think I would like to make a recommendation that on April 14th, the Monday after these are due, that we get another list with amounts of how much our legislators have supported our children.
Yes.
Again, that is very powerful to our chapters that we represent when we go out to do our reports, and we present that. There's times Mr. Hyatt has attended chapter meetings with me or at the schools, that we show them that this is how much our legislators have supported you as students for GMCS. So I think we need to continue that and let our main, the main constituents that we serve, who is our students, see what our legislators are and how they're supporting them again.
And I would add that this is a fairly recent development. It was only about 4 years ago that the legislature decided it was a good idea to become more transparent and publish the list of how every lawmaker allocated their money for capital outlay projects. Before, we never got this list. All we saw was the final number. We had no idea who gave what, when, or why. But we will know that, Member Benally, shortly after April 11th. It usually takes about a month after the legislative session adjourns that we get the list, and of course, you will all get that. Let me move down now to Real quick, House Bill 532 at the bottom of page 2. This is a mandate. I don't think it's an expensive one, but you as a school board, you are now going to be required to develop or adopt a written guidance for parents that promotes student safety in, on, and around bodies of water and water infrastructure. Now, I don't know exactly where this came from or what the,
What?
I could see it maybe for the Cochiti Lake District, but it's in there. You're gonna have to do that now. You're gonna have to create a guidance for parents that promotes student safety around bodies of water.
Swimming.
Rama Lake, I think, is about the only one we got.
There you go.
Close, semi-close to a school.
Maybe they see all of our Mariano Lake, Smith Lake, all those, Ambrosia Lake. They
Right.
think we have a lot of lakes.
Yep.
That's right. All 89 districts do it. Let me talk about the last one here real quick. Elimination of pocket vetoes. I was talking to Giovanna before the meeting, and I said, I don't think that passed. Well, it actually did pass, but it's HJR2. Now, JR means joint resolution. This is not a piece of legislation that the legislature passed. Joint resolutions are proposed constitutional amendments. The governor has line item veto authority and pocket veto authority stated in the New Mexico Constitution. So if you want to eliminate her ability or the ability of any future governor to no longer do pocket vetoes, you all are going to get to decide that in the next November election because it's going to be on the ballot, and you can decide whether or not you want the governor to continue to have pocket veto authority. What is a pocket veto? Well, the governor can do 3 things with the bill on her desk. She can sign it, she can formally veto it, which requires a written message on why the governor is vetoing the bill, or the governor can pocket veto it. Pocket veto means that the governor takes no official action by the April 11th deadline. She doesn't sign it, she just ignores it, and that bill is dead through pocket veto, which simply means it died because there was no signature. Governors like to pocket veto bills because when they pocket veto a bill, they don't have to say why they're doing it. They just let the bill slip into the deep blue sea, and it's dead. And it can't go back. Well, they can take it up in the following session, but they can't do it they can't do it this year. So the legislature, they don't like pocket vetoes because it's their bills that are being vetoed without any message, any comment from the governor, and it drives them crazy. So they did pass a proposed constitutional amendment, which will be on the next November general election ballot, and the citizens of New Mexico will be voting whether or not they want to eliminate pocket vetoes. On the next page, page 3 at the top, a memorial, House Memorial 2, memorials do not have the weight of law. They simply ask the executive branch or the legislature, certain committees, to study things, or they're a declaration of legislative intent. And you'll notice I mentioned artificial intelligence. Well, there's a memorial right there, taking a further look at artificial intelligence policies. I'm going to go down to Senate Bill 11. This is also a very significant policy bill. Senate Bill 11 is called Anti-Distraction Policies in the Schools. This is not a mandate, though. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but this encourages every school board, every school district to adopt anti-distraction policies, and what we're talking about here is the use of cell phones in the classroom. You will be? It is? So they did turn it to a mandate? There was another mandate bill on this that did not pass, but they must have changed this language so that, because when it came out, it was encourage school board. So this is a mandate. You do have to adopt, you're going to have to adopt cell phone policies. If the governor signs the bill.
Okay,
And there's funding. There's funding associated with this bill.
Priscilla?
we just have to do a policy. We don't have to do a policy against cell phones use in the school. Oh,
It's got to be an anti-distraction policy. You want to fill in the blanks here?
Yes, so what actually passed in the bill was that it would be required to prohibit a student from using wireless communication device during instructional hours. So there are various requirements that are going to be part of that policy, but that's the primary one. There are some call-outs for our special needs students who use speech to talk and those type of additional devices to facilitate instruction. But for the most part, it is going to require us to prohibit a student using wireless communication during instructional hours.
so how are we gonna do that with our schools that have, I mean, we just took that tour where our students are using, like media, they're using their own cell phones to do homework. They're doing videos, they're doing all these amazing stuff with media, and now we're gonna tell them, no, you can't use your cell phone. So, I mean, is there a clause in there or something that says if the teacher makes an assignment? Or is that up to us to do that kind of a policy?
And Member Benali, I would defer and
What
say
does-
that we will write a policy that best meets the instructional needs of our student.
Okay.
And we can review it and revise it. I don't know if there's a time limit on this particular bill, if it is is it chaptered, but
August 1st, 2025, we must have a policy in place.
we have to,
Unless the bill is vetoed or line item vetoed.
if it gets chaptered, then we'll visit it and bring it to the board.
So I think, Member Benali, you've highlighted something that's really important here. I'm assuming that your policy, one of your goals of that policy will be to protect the use of the legitimate use of cell phones when they're used during instructional time and they're incorporated as part of that instruction. Where it's going to get tricky, though, and why there's money associated with this, because I think your policy is going to also have to address the times during instructional time when those students cannot use their cell phones. Now, why is there money attached to this? Because you're going to have to create a place where you've got to store the cell phones. You've got to actually, I think you're going to have to retrieve them and store them away from student access. But then you've also got to balance, this was raised during the debate during this bill. What about emergency situations? If you have a really critical emergency situation, parents like to talk to their students in emergency situations like that. So that's another thing you're going to have to address in this policy. When is the cell phone appropriate during instructional time? When is it not? And what's the policy going to be when you have an emergency and those kids need those phones? So
Mr. Long?
have some fun with that. Good luck with that.
Kevin?
I think when we think in policy, I think the main wording is distraction. So I think that'd probably be the best way to put a policy together using, distraction. If the cell phones are being used for educational use, that's fine, but if a teacher is up there talking and instructing off just a regular blackboard or something and the students are on their phone texting one another, it's a distraction. So it's pretty common sense. I don't know. Thank you.
And Member Mitchell, if I may add to that, as I look through some of these bills where they're trying to kind of top down and not allowing local boards, local control, the reality is there's 89 school districts and over 100 charter schools, and every one of those LEAs has students with specific needs. And who knows the needs more than the people who live within those communities. And so, it's part and parcel of why this board continues to support local control. Just as you said, we are being agile, we are using technology to its advantage. why they want to top-down mandate things upon us that will not benefit our students. I don't know. It just goes back to the further you get away from local control, the less you are focusing on the needs of individual students that you serve. So unfortunately, that's what we continue to see.
Thank you.
Moving down, the next bill, Senate Bill 13, State Tribal Education Compact Schools Act. This is a new piece of legislation I've not seen before. And this bill is not, just safe to say, we have some real concerns about this legislation.
13.
It's a little bit divisive. The Pueblo, we have 19 Pueblos in the state. They tended to support this bill. The Gallup McKinley County School District was not very supportive of this bill, and here's the reason why. It's the position of the Gallup McKinley County School District that education dollars should go to the district. End of story.
Tribes.
What this bill does is it sends education dollars directly to the tribal government, not the district. Now, the Pueblos have sort of a different structure than this district does with the Navajo Nation. They're just different entities. So the Pueblo governments are kind of, they're smaller, a little closer knit, not as controversial. But that's a very different situation than we have here with the Navajo Nation and with the Gallup McKinley County School District. And I think the concern here is that we already have 100 charter schools in the state that compete for funding with traditional public schools. And this is likely to open the door for charter schools to be created directly by tribal governments, more than we've seen before. And so there are some issues with this. It is on the governor's desk. It was supported by Pueblos. It was impossible to stop. I think this thing had unanimous votes all the way through the House and the Senate, and we couldn't stop it. And it's on the governor's desk. I'm going to guess she's probably going to sign it with so much support behind it and with Pueblo support, but it could create it has ramifications for this school district down the road.
Can you tell us the amount, sir?
It just allows you to create a school receiving state funding. It doesn't have an amount.
Okay, so, Mr. Long,
I could be wrong, Mike. Is that correct? It just gives you the avenue to create a school and use state funding in a much more loose way than any other charter or public school has the opportunity to do. So there's less rules and regulations.
I thought at one time this had funding attached to it. Is it not?
It is the same as charter. That's how they made the link.
Okay, well, there's a big clue about the charter schools. So these schools that we started by a tribal government would be eligible to receive the same type of startup funding that current charter schools do. It follows that same path.
Priscilla.
Thank you, Mr. Long. When we were going to the communities and including chapters for the election, the election that just happened, there was a lot that was mentioned, and Senator Munoz brought up to the communities that he brought, I want to say $5 million to the communities, to education, and I think 2.5 was supposed to go to GMCS, another went to Zuni, and it was split. And that's what he kept mentioning throughout the campaign. So my question, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is my question is, where is that $5 million? Where was it spent? Was it spent on education? And was it spent in New Mexico schools? This is not a legislative system in Arizona. This was funding that was brought from New Mexico to and it went to the Navajo Nation. Didn't come to us, it went to Navajo Nation. Where is that funding now? Because the same thing, I'm scared, the same thing's going to happen with these fundings. We're not going to know where it went, where it was spent. It wasn't spent on education. Where it was told that it would be spent on.
Member Benali, the $5 million you were speaking of was passed last year. In 2024, the governor did line item veto Gallup, McKinley, and Zuni Public Schools out of the language. And you're right, it did go to the tribal governments, and we have no idea where that money went. We didn't receive any of it.
And we can IPRA it.
Absolutely.
That's a good idea.
You know, I think one thing that Representative Lenti has always been trying to do is make the state responsible for BIE schools.
That's correct.
And that's going to be terrible if it happens. You know, and I think we really need to keep an eye on what Lenti does. Whatever he does, he looks at the Pueblos, but the Pueblos have a different educational system. And whereas the Navajo Nation, you know, we have a big educational system, and I think the Navajo Nation supports the public schools and then leaves everything up to BIA for BIA schools, contract schools, and grant schools.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, Mr. Long, is, you know, we, I'm trying to be so as respectful as I can to our nation. One of the issues we have is the funding process that we have set up at Navajo Nation. Our communities have suffered because the funding cycle that it goes through all these departments, the 164 process, has done damage to our communities. That process is holding up lots of our funding for our chapters, for emergency funding, for all these projects that our communities have. They're being held up. And our communities are suffering. And I attended a county commissioner meeting in Gallup a few months ago. The Navajo Nation Code Talker Museum Committee asked the county commissioners if they could change their physical agent from Navajo Nation to Gallup county commissioners because the funding was tied up. And they had until, I think, June, I'm not too sure, there was a deadline date, and they didn't want to lose all that money that was brought to us by the Senator Pinto. And it's just that same process again. The money is stuck, and it's not getting through to where it needs to get to, and we're losing out. We're losing out on the funding. So that's what makes me nervous, is all this educational fund, millions of dollars, again, are going to be tied up in that 164 process, and it's not going to make it to our kids.
I'm going to move down to Senate Bill 82. This is also a capital outlay bill, just making a couple of technical changes that are favorable changes, and this bill was strongly supported by the district. Number one, it permanently simplifies the criteria that will allow certain districts to apply for their public school capital outlay for the waiver of certain statutory match requirements, and it also is going to extend the existing temporary local match reductions that were passed in 2023. Sort of a technical bill, but a good bill. While we're still on capital outlay, I'm going to make a comment. Last summer, Senator George Munoz, who's the chair of the Senate Finance Committee, made it well known publicly that because we have a almost $6 billion balance of unspent capital outlay projects, you're going to see a change coming on capital outlay projects that are submitted for reauthorization. You know, we have new projects that are approved every year, And the funding stays in place for about 3 or 4 years. That's the way it works. And then if you don't spend the money, regardless of who you are, city, county, school district, whatever, if you don't spend it within that timeline, you can submit a reauthorization request that will allow you to keep that money, and you get it for another 2 or 3 years. And you can even kill the original purpose and reauthorize that money that's been banked towards a completely new project. But this balance of unspent money has gotten so big that the legislature has gotten to the point where they're frustrated with it. And if you do have projects that have been on the books, funding for 3 or 4 years, and you are looking to reauthorize them, I don't think those reauthorizations are going to be automatic. I think, in my opinion, this is the last year we have seen the legislature automatically approve reauthorization requests. I think they're going to look at it through the lens. When they see a reauthorization request, it's going to have to relate to public safety, public health, critical infrastructure, and I'm afraid if it doesn't meet any of those criteria, you may not get your reauthorization request approved. So just something to think about going forward. Senator Munoz was very loud on this in this last summer, and during this session, he was pounding the table on this again, figuratively speaking. And I thought they were going to kill him this year. You know, I represent the city of Santa Fe, and they had some late audits that tied up their ability to spend their money. And they're sitting on a lot of projects, and they submitted 7 reauthorization requests, and I thought for a while they weren't going to get them. But they went through. But if I have, Giovanna, I have not seen a capital outlay reauthorization request since I've been. So you may not have to worry about it because you got a good team. But it is something to think about going forward. Probably a bigger issue for the city of Gallup and McKinley County, I would suspect. Yeah. Okay, so almost done. Just a couple more bills to hit. I'm on page 4. Senate Bill 163. Good bill, probably long over. Allowing students to adorn tribal regalia.
Yes.
At graduation. This has been an issue where we have seen students told they cannot participate in graduation if they're going to wear certain types of clothing or anything of cultural significance. They usually are told they can't do it. So we finally have dealt with this issue, and this is behind us. So, yes. And you'll notice, Member Benally, there's that word chaptered. This is now law.
Yep.
Senate Bill 343, teacher salary rate changes. This has already been addressed. And then Senate Bill 345, the next one. This is an interesting bill. Primarily what this bill does is for brand new teachers out of their colleges of education. Right now, when you graduate from a college of education, you've got to take an assessment or an exam that's approved by the state. What this bill does is it now gives that new graduating teacher the choice. You can take the assessment, or you can submit a subjective portfolio to the public education department to prove that you now have the knowledge and mastery of skills to become a licensed teacher. I'm sort of simplifying that. Did I get close?
Yes, except for reading. Reading is the only exception.
That's because that test is in state statute, and they did not eliminate that reading test that's required of new teachers. That is a standalone section of statute that they didn't touch, but we are going to a portfolio system. And Iowa has done this. We are going to be one of the early states that does this, but this is a trend across the country. I think we're going to see this a little more often, getting away from testing new teachers and having them submit a portfolio. Last bill on this page, I just have a couple more. Senate Bill 401, this is going to move the funding for broadband out of, I believe, the Public School Facilities Authority. It moves the funding for educational infrastructure technology out of the PSFA, and it's going to move it over to the Office of Broadband Access, and it's called OBI. Office of Broadband Access and something. I forget what the E stands for. So that's good. I think that could open the door for more funding, or at least an easier flow of the money for information technology, broadband deployment, which of course, those needs are growing every year. Last bill I'm going to mention on the last page, Senate Bill 480.
Before you do that, can you talk about Senate Bill 387?
Yeah, Giovanna, I'm not well versed on this. I did not have this one on my list.
I can talk to it about a little bit unless Javon has more information. You have a community school grant that we're able to apply for to get funding. If you're doing it's a certain kind of model for a school, and you've been pretty flexible on it. I don't know specifically what this bill has to change, but I think it just gives some more specific requirements with what you have to go through to get that funding. So we currently have received that funding for our new McKinley Tech School that are for kind of Gallup Central High School / McKinley Tech. And so it doesn't affect us too much. I don't think the requirements in there are too strenuous. But.
Okay.
So Vice President Long, members of the board, Superintendent, this will allow an increase in the amount of awards up to $150,000 per year from the Public Education Department was the significant change financially. And then it also renames the program to Dr. Jeannie Oaks Memorial Community Schools Fund.
Currently it's 70 or 90.
Yeah, it's around 70 or 90. So it's just expanding the amount of award that can be provided.
Okay. Thank you.
And one last bill that I'm going to mention on the last page, Senate Bill 480, student graduation reporting. This is a reporting process that's going to be on the Public Education Department. They are going to start tracking students that do not graduate from high school within the 4-year span. Is that correct? They're just interested in tracking students that don't graduate from high school in 4 years and what's happening to them. So that's not a burden on you. That's going to be a report provided by the Public Education Department.
Yeah, they already track that, so I'm not sure. That's kind of an interesting bill.
Well, they're going to share it with you finally. I'm kidding.
They already do, so.
Michael?
JD, back to first page, House Bill 47, the Veterans Property Tax Exemption. How much is that going to cost the school system? I know the county said they're going to lose over $2 million.
For which one was that? I'm sorry.
House Bill 47, Veteran Property Tax Exemption. The county said they'd lose about $2 million for the county.
Member Schaaf, so this goes back to the way that the district and all other public entities are able to bond. So we do it based upon our assessed valuation. And so by fully exempting veteran properties, before it was a specific monetary amount based upon level of disability, and I think there's still a piece in there, but the removal of that assessed valuation from the tax rolls is kind of still to be seen. We have been very cautious, and the board has allowed us to do so. We've seen over the past 5 years significant devaluation in McKinley County due to this tri-state Escalante power plant and the loss of the grazing rights. So the district has been very cautious to maintain our mill levy to ensure that we don't increase taxes on our communities. But for the district, we are still, because we've been conservative, we feel that we're going to be able to stay on track with our current sell of plans. But that $2 million, essentially what that does is our total assessed valuation in McKinley County, we can only bond up to 6% of that. And so total, we can only bond about $40 million right now. And that would just decrease our total bond threshold. But again, the district has kind of seen what's been happening with assessed valuation property coming off the tax rolls. And really residential property is not the driver of assessed valuation in McKinley County. Really the driver is those commercial non-residential valuation. So this will impact us. I don't see it being done to the district. And as you know, civic readiness being one of our cornerstones, we value our veterans, every one of them.
Yes. Is this going to be on top of what's already in place? You know, veterans already are exempted a certain amount on their property taxes.
This one's gonna.
It's very little.
This is going to increase it substantially.
The reduction's super small right now, so this eliminates it. So.
Mr. Long?
Priscilla?
Thank you, JD. I just pulled up some notes from Mr. Guillen from the New Mexico School Board Association, and I see that the HJR 4 and SJR 15 for the State Board of Education did not pass. Do you know anything about those, or can you email us how far it went?
Yes.
Because I think a lot of us were in support of that,
Right.
that bill.
Right. I know a lot about this subject, and thank you. I meant to address that, Member Benelli, so thank you for bringing that up. I just overlooked it. So back in, I believe it was 2002, when Bill Richardson was governor, we did not have a public education department with a cabinet secretary. We had an elected statewide school board, and that school board chose our superintendent of public instruction. When Bill Richardson was governor, he said, we need to improve our educational outcomes, and the best way to do that is we need a cabinet secretary of the education department who's directly accountable to the governor. Now, the superintendent of public instruction and the state school board was in our Constitution. So the legislature passed a joint resolution, and you'll notice Member Benally is mentioning SJR 15, that Senate Joint Resolution, SJR 4, Senate Joint Resolution 4. These were all joint resolutions to reverse what the voters did in 2002. These are proposed constitutional amendments to go back to the voters in the general election, to go back to a state elected school board, which then would appoint a superintendent of public instruction, and we would no longer have a cabinet secretary of education accountable to the governor. Now, why is the legislature entertaining this notion 20 years later, the notion of going back to the way it was? Primarily, the main argument is it hasn't changed student outcomes. If anything, we've gotten probably a little worse. I think 20 years ago we were 47th or 48th, and now I think we're officially 50th. So that's one argument. But there has also been a tremendous amount of turnover in the cabinet secretary position of education, and there has been very little consistency. And we have had secretaries of education. I mean, I think there was one year we had like three of them.
Why is it so hard to stay in that job currently?
Well, it's a political arena, superintendent. Sometimes there's politics in a political arena.
Well, it's just the governor's office, right? Not the legislators. So why is there so much turnover in just the governor's office with respect to education?
I honestly can't answer that question. I think we can all have theories, but that is
like when there's turnover in an organization.
That is a cabinet secretary position where there has been a lack of consistency and a lot of turnover. And lawmakers feel like, well, then we maybe we should go back and try it the way we had it before and just improve it. So let me finish answering the final part of your question. Why are these not passing? What's the politics of it? It's interesting, back in 2002, it was, there was a lot of push from Republicans to go to a cabinet secretary of education. That system was supported by the business community. It was supported by Republicans. Democrats weren't real crazy about it. A lot of Democrats like that system. However, now the politics of it are upside down. The Democrats now see we are a blue state. Democrats control the House by a huge margin. They control the Senate. They control the governor's office, attorney general. You've got to go all the way down to the county commission level to find an elected Republican. So the Democrats like the idea, generally, not all of them, because there were Democrats pushing this, but now it is a majority of Democrats who are blocking this because most of them like the idea of a Democratic governor, which they think we're going to have for many years into the future. They like the idea of a cabinet secretary being accountable to a Democratic governor. The Republicans now are the ones pushing to go back because they don't like so much the idea of a cabinet secretary accountable to a Democratic governor. So the politics on this are all over the place. There are Democrats and Republicans that support it, but there are more Democrats who don't support it than support it, and that's why these are not passing.
I think it did pass. It did pass unanimously. Didn't it pass through both House and Senate, then when it went back?
No, it did not.
No, so I was just going to mention that on the House side, it was initially referred to economic and environmental research as well as House rules. It didn't get heard in either one of those committees, so it just died a natural death. On the Senate side, it went to Senate Education and Senate Rules. It passed both Senate Education and Senate Rules, went to Senate Finance, but didn't get acted upon. So on the Senate side, it did move through.
Right.
And that,
But Senator Souls was a big pusher of this.
correct, absolutely.
This is
It
the
went
House-
through
the chair of
Senate
Senate-
Education
or Senate
very
Education.
strongly, which we were hoping was going to have some momentum, but it did die in Senate Finance.
I think another reason that we could add to this is the erosion of local control in New Mexico. Education has been significant, and a primary cause of that has been the governor's control of the Secretary of Education. So that's been the fight that we've been fighting for a few years now. So I think finally a lot of legislators started to wake up to the issue of local control,
Right.
especially after the last year's session with or year before or whatever it was for the number of days required to go to school. So
I think that's a fair point. And remember, this is a joint resolution. So this is a proposed constitutional amendment. This does not have to go to the governor for signature. Joint resolutions, proposed constitutional amendments only have to pass the Senate, only have to pass the House, and then it goes straight to the voters. I will say in general, New Mexico is not a referendum state, like Arizona or like Colorado, like California, like a lot of other states, which have a petition process, and citizens can get enough signatures on a petition, and you can take a lot of issues straight to the voters through a referendum. We don't allow that in New Mexico. The only way the voters get to decide a policy matter is if the legislature decides it's going to allow the voters to have a crack to change the Constitution. And in general, our legislature is very stingy about doing that. So there's also that element. You just don't see this legislature passing many proposed constitutional amendments and taking the issue straight to the voters and letting them decide. They much prefer to kind of deal with it themselves. Now, this is a tricky issue because, like I say, the lawmakers, regardless of the Republicans or Democrats, are all over the map on this subject. They're all over the map, but it is political, and there is a tendency still in the legislature to just be a little stingy with putting issues in front of the voters to change the Constitution. Now, they did it on the pocket vetoes because they really care about that one.
a terrible concept to go to the constituents.
Yeah, but on this one, where there's no consensus, those kinds of constitutional amendments are hard to get to the voters because the lawmakers are divided. And the legislature wants to be sure that they send something to the voters where they can all at least largely agree on, and they don't agree on this one. So that's another element.
And the last one Giovanna and I kind of talked about this at the last board meeting, was the paid family medical leave. That did not pass, correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
in fact, thanks again for bringing that up. There were three bills that I want to highlight it that didn't pass. One of them we just covered. The joint resolution to go back to an elected state school board and appointed superintendent of public instruction. We've just covered that. Another big bill that did not pass was House Bill 11. This was the paid family medical leave bill. This is a very, very heavy, controversial bill. It did pass the House. It got over to the Senate, and we've talked a lot about the Senate Finance Committee. The Senate Finance Committee is the committee that stopped this legislation. It proposes 12 weeks every year for parents that are dealing with a child instance, child death, childbirth, you name it. If it's maternity or paternity related, 12 weeks paid leave every year. If it's not related to a child issue, the proposal was 9 weeks of paid leave every year. And that's a pretty generous policy. Illinois, for example, has a paid family medical leave law, and everybody gets 40 hours a year, 1 week a year. This one was significantly more generous. It had a lot of support, but when it got to the Senate Finance Committee, it was killed on an 8-3 vote. 4 Republicans voted against it, and 4 Democrats on that committee voted against it. Senate Finance Committee has 11 members, and 8 people on that committee, 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, voted against the legislation. And I can tell you who the Democrats were. It was Senator Pete Campos of Las Vegas. It was Chairman Senator George Munoz of Gallup. It was Senator Bobby Gonzalez of Taos. And I am drawing a blank now on the fourth Democrat that voted against it. The Vice Chairman, Senator Benny Shendo, who's a Jemez Pueblo man. So a lot of opposition to that on the Senate Finance Committee. I expect it to come back in some form. I think what tanked the bill this year is that while there are a lot of supporters for this, there are a lot of groups that also quietly oppose it, that for political reasons don't want to come out publicly on this. And I will tell you, I know that this bill was not popular with a lot of municipalities. They were worried about the effect on their police departments, the effect on their fire departments. There were school districts that didn't like it because of the effect on teachers and disruptions. There were even Indian tribal casinos that, would not stand up and oppose it. But also, some of these casinos employ hundreds of people, and they're not crazy about losing their blackjack.
Well, you're also missing, this wasn't put out there very much, but also every employee in New Mexico would have to pay into it out of their checks. And that wasn't talked about a lot.
So that was another argument against it. One of the arguments against the bill was the vast majority of employees are never going to use this, but they still have to pay into the fund because that's how this works.
They never mentioned that part. They only mentioned all these benefits.
You create a fund that all employers, unless they are very small employers, like
less than
2 or something like that, or 5,
that.
something like that, they wouldn't have to pay into it. All the employees still do, though. So small businesses, the employer didn't have to pay, but every employee still had to pay into this fund, and that's how you would get your benefits when you use the paid family medical leave. Your employer would not pay your salary. You would get that benefit out of this newly created fund. I expect it to be back, and I think it's a matter of time before eventually something passes on this line, but it sounds like you want to make a comment.
Yeah, just really quickly, they also didn't account for mission-critical employees being out of work. For example, they did not do any analysis on what funding would need to be available to afford substitutes or substitute employees during this time. And they didn't do anything as far as, because the employer would also have to contribute a portion, they didn't do anything about the cost of what we would need to be funded for that. So it was very scary to us, the way that they were attempting to implement it without fully thinking through the financial consequences, as we know that unfunded mandates wreak havoc on our district.
Michael?
I understand that Senator Munoz had all the senators come in and they went through exactly how much it was going to cost, and it would only fund it for 1 year, and then the fund would be bankrupt, and the state would have to come up with the money that they could not, it would not sustain itself.
On that point, that I believe is a major reason why this stumbled in a Senate Finance Committee, because there were serious questions about the viability of the fund after 1 year and how this would be funded long-term, and I don't think that was fully baked. And of course, you go in front of a Senate Finance Committee without that piece in place, they're going to be pretty hard on you.
Yeah.
Thank you. One last ask is, you know, that we met with the governor and we tried to ask her for help for marijuana marketing to children, et cetera. She claimed that there wasn't enough teeth in the current law to allow her to do anything about it, even though there is some teeth in the law. But she tried to put us on the spot and saying, name all the marijuana legislation, which was an interesting deflection. But the House Bill 10, I know for sure, was one of those. I think it passed. I'm not sure. I'd like to.
It did pass.
Basically, the ask is, can you gather all the legislation that was passed on marijuana regulation, et cetera, in New Mexico this last session, so we can watch those bills to make sure. House Bill 10 was one of the ones we wanted to get passed. We wanted to be stronger language.
Right.
I just want to make sure that, given that she says she doesn't have the teeth to do anything about marketing to students marijuana, I hope that she signs that bill, House Bill 10 and others, if there are others.
Yeah, and actually, during the session, you know, I stood up and supported House Bill 10 on behalf of the Gallup McKinley County School District and made comments that the district would like to see enhanced enforcement on this. Yeah. It wasn't amended, but it did go to the governor. So are you asking, so for
you to collect all the marijuana legislation that passed, so we can watch it, or if we need to write a letter to ask that it not be vetoed.
Okay.
Et cetera, so that we can make sure that the governor has added teeth to take care of our youth who are being marketed to in many different ways.
Happy to do that for you.
DHCA.
You know, during the session, you did ask for a list for the marijuana bills. So I can just go back and retrieve all those bills, and all I have to do is look and see which ones.
I think the board would be interested in having that.
See which ones made it to the governor's desk. Happy to do that for you.
Thank you. Appreciate the report.
What? I think she's right. I think it was only House Bill 10. I don't recall.
She claimed that she wanted me to name off all the legislation, but the one that we wanted passed was the one that actually made it through. It was interesting.
Right. I don't recall seeing another. Yeah, so I think it's House Bill 10, but we'll check on that.
Interesting. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for trusting me and Charlie Marcus to do lobbying for the district. And every year I think it gets a little bit better. I will say in general, I thought this overall, while there's always things we don't like, overall, not a terrible session.
There were some good things in there for sure, for funding.
Yeah, funding's going to go up.
And we'll make sure that there's $500,000 in appropriations for Gallup McKinley County Schools. We don't know what legislators or legislator gave those dollars to us, but we'll definitely recognize them. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, JD.
Mr. Long?
Priscilla?
Mr. Hyatt, is this the one you're talking about here?
Correct.
Okay, because this looks awful.
Well,
we're asking for $6 million total,
Oh, we got
and we get 500,000. Let's,
Well, there's only been a year where there's only been 3 years where we even received money that I'm aware of in the last decade or more, 2 decades. And so while I understand what you're saying, and we'll continue to look at what legislators appropriate their dollars towards that they get. I know some legislators do about half of it outside of McKinley County or their area. We'll watch that very closely and publicly put it on our website and on our Facebook to make sure people know where their legislators are sending their dollars to. But I'm grateful for the $500,000. It'll help. There's some things that need to be done and costs are rising. So
yes.
if they're willing to give us some dollars, I appreciate it. I wish they'd give us a little bit more. Sometimes they give more dollars to very small schools, and they ignore the largest school in their area, which has the most constituents, parents that send their kids to public school. So thank you.
I just want to say thank you also to JD. She, being in Santa Fe, he's always been super helpful, and also the emails. JD, thank you for submitting emails to us and updates. Those were very appreciated for the board.
Mr. Long,
Kevin?
and thank you not only for the emails, but also, any other little questions or concerns we might have that we text to you or call you. Your quick response back to us is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Long, I have a few more items.
Go ahead, Mike.
Unless there's more questions about legislation or legislative session. I'll move quickly. I didn't know how long-winded JD was today, but did a good job, but a lot of information, but I don't want to take too much more of your time, although we have a short schedule today or a short agenda. Just wanted to make sure everyone was aware and the board was aware. We continue to move forward on capital projects in Gallup County Schools. We just finished Red Rock as far as the main building construction. Some of you have had a chance to go and walk through that beautiful facility. We'll be working on the demolishing and finishing of the parking lots and areas for that facility. We have met with architects at least twice, maybe more, on Navajo Pine High School, and we're looking to add the middle school into that award. So we're going to go back to PSCOC to possibly rebuild Navajo Middle School, also in conjunction with the high school. That seemed to be favorable to PSFA, and so we'll pursue that. We've also had several meetings, same with Crown Point High School and Crown Point Middle School. Those have already been awarded, and so we can move forward rather quickly. We expect to have some renderings, hopefully within the next 6 months. We'll have some renderings, if not sooner, of that facility, and so we're excited about 2 facilities, and so we're excited about that. Through high school, we're finishing up construction documents on that. I'm not sure how much longer that'll take, but hopefully those will be done soon. McKinley Tech, we also have about 6 months to finish the construction documents for McKinley Tech, which will be our new CTE career pathway school here on the east side of Gallup. And then McKinley Academy, we should be going out to bid, we're hoping in the fall for the construction of that facility, if not late summer, probably late summer. And so we're excited about that also. So there's lots of capital projects going on. We have Angelo, as you saw on the appropriations list, Angelo DePaulo Stadium. We've got to do some significant work to the field and track. So for graduation this year, you're going to see a dirt track because we're getting ready to tear it down and take about 3 feet of soil out of that area because of how bad it was, and then redo that in a better way so that we can have a facility that the whole district uses quite readily or quite often. So we're excited to get that underway so that we can get it finished before football season, which is that field's used quite a bit. It won't be available for track again this year, but the following year we'll be able to have all the schools for track meets at the stadium. The other thing really quickly is we had a cultural education conference this last week. Appreciate those who were able to attend. Mr. Mitchell, I know you were there. Our team did a great job at putting together training for our staff, our heritage language teachers across the district, able to be there for part of that, and it was just a great event. We also have testing coming up soon, state testing. And so that time frame has been pushed ahead a little bit or back a little bit, so that's good, so that more of the school year happens before the state assesses our students. So that'll be happening soon. We redid our website to make it more user-friendly. That seems to be a regular occurrence. We're always looking to update that, and during the next meeting, we'll show you the new version of the website. You're also able to go look at it yourself and see it, but we're getting it up to speed and getting all the information in there currently. We are also in the middle of union negotiations currently. We actually have them almost every Monday. We have one tonight, meeting to negotiate. We've been sending proposals back and forth. It seems most of the proposals from the union is a copy and paste from the Albuquerque Public Schools union collective bargaining agreement. So we've been kind of going through that process. I haven't heard many parents from APS say this is a great system of education, but you know, that's what the union is proposing, that Gallup McKinley County Schools CBA look like APS. So some of those things, there may be a few things in there that might be good, that we think that might be, but current language, a lot of it is things that we don't feel would be best for our parents and our students, most importantly for them, but we'll continue to work through that process. Lastly, we did send out our budget survey, or getting ready to send out our budget survey. Did it go out, Giovanna? It did go out. So our budget survey, which will give us information on from the community about things about the district, what's going well, what things we can improve upon, where our dollars should be spent, and then also that'll help us inform us as we get ready to ramp up our revision of Elevate 25 to Elevate hopefully 2028. And so we'll be getting that process. Once we get the information back, we'll start having sessions with the board to update our strategic plan, your strategic plan. Outside of that, I think that is it. Any questions?
Superintendent, I just was wanting to get maybe an update on Tohatchee High School. I know, and it's really exciting. You know, I go by daily and I see what's being accomplished. You know, so I would kind of like to know where they're at, if they're on track for our completion of 2026. I'm hoping that the weather, with no winter happening, you know, that they're on track or either ahead. You know, so.
Thank you. I apologize. That was on my list. Skipped over Tohatchee. It's under construction. You're right. Some people think the gym is going to be small, but it's going to be hundreds and hundreds of seats bigger than it currently is. It's still on track to be completed, and the winter weather has really helped. This mild weather in this winter has been a blessing to get